Welcome to the program, Glenn. Today we are going to go into depth about the Nazi UFO deception, which I think we both believe is prevalent in this UFO field at this time of our recording. It is quite a popular subject, but I think we will go into it from a little more different perspective than most. So I'll give the word to you, Glenn, and you can make a little intro to the subject.
All righty, Renee. Well, this is a subject that I'm very happy to discuss and to take apart in pieces to give people a rational and factual explanation and background to this particular subject and genre that has been promoted by many in the UFO field simply because they are all too willing to accept the dogma of misinformation that is promoted out there, and there is little experience behind it to back it, so it makes it even a greater unknown. And the subject of UFOs, as we have already discussed many times, has become saturated with misinformation and disinformation. Misinformation is basically distortion, and disinformation is basically deception. And in fact, distortion and deception have become the premier methods of trying to negate any fact behind extraterrestrial intelligence, extraterrestrials visiting us, the flying saucers, and their craft that which they come through space in order to interact with us. And this works in conjunction with the official mantra of denial,
Yeah.
right? Because if it fits perfectly into the slip of things, because if we can falsely associate the facts behind UFOs and these spacecrafts into something else that is terrestrial or some other kind of manifestation, whether that's swamp gas or temperature inversion or anything else that we have given the sorrowful excuses for, then we can automatically claim to negate the existence of any of this phenomena. And in fact, as you and I well know, the recent statements by NASA and by the Pentagon just within the last weeks and the last few months have said, once again, there is nothing to this subject, there's no UFOs, there's no visitations, and so on and so forth. So the entire mindset of disqualifying this and totally denying it has not changed already from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And the 60s, the big push to open up the information was squelched. And it is not any different now than it was then. There is no such thing as truthful disclosure.
No.
But to go back to the Nazi UFOs, we have composed a series of visuals in order to let people see that this cannot possibly be anything to do with the Nazis. As a brief history, in 1933, Hitler came to power with the Nazis. And in 1935, Werner von Braun suggested Peenemünde, which was going to be their secretive away base, to be a great site for development. In 1937, construction began, and in 1938, it was completed, and it was assigned as a Luftwaffe, or an Air Force base, in its original state. And then later on, they became in an area, much just like our Area 51 was developed as an air base and later become an area for more clandestine or more secretive developments. But in Peenemünde, in 1942, the V1 was developed. the rocket, and in the 1944 was the V2. And then there are rumors, because there has never been any substantive evidence, whether it is in the Deutsche Archives or picture-wise or anywhere else, of any actual UFO development craft. Now, there are many different names by which this goes by, and this is, I have in the first chapter of my new book, the UFO Reality Can Truth Prevail. It talks about that the development of what they call the Feuerball or Fireball, Discus, Honebu, the Vero, the Kugelblitz, or the Bell Blitz, Andromeda, Kugelwaffe, all these different names were given to the development of roundish type craft. Now, during World War II, a number of these crafts were sighted, right? Not earthly developed craft, but extraterrestrial craft.
Yeah.
And as we will show soon, that there are photographs as far back as 1910, which was 20 years before the Germans even came into power. Remember, in 1910, World War I hadn't even started, and we were flying airplanes with paper wrapped around the wings. Yeah. So our technological expertise and abilities was absolutely non-existent in compared to the technology necessary for these craft. And so, consequently, not only are there those photos that we will see, but there is also a record, as far as historical painting wise, that we will examine as well, so that we can show that the nature of these crafts go back at least through the Middle Ages. Now, if we look at the chronology of historical events, which I have a whole chapter of in my book as well, in the second section, that goes back several thousand years. You have the flying shield, the flying scroll, the wheel within the wheel. It goes back through all the civilizations, whether it happens to be in India, in Egypt, South America. They all have tales of these type of flying devices. Clearly, none of that is Nazi either. And so the contingent of those who are trying to push upon the unsuspecting public, and I call this nefarious manipulation of information in order to impose and brainwash the unsuspecting public, it shows that these crafts have been around for thousands of years and have nothing to do with the development. The Germans saw some of these craft in their skies, and they decided, well, by looking at their maneuverability and their abilities of other things as well, that perhaps it could be reproduced. This is exactly the same mentality that we have in current era. The Japanese replicate our cars and engines, and us, them, vice versa. The Chinese steal software and hardware, and everybody's stealing and replicating from everybody else. To say that a German round object is the same as an authentic UFO would be like saying, well, a VW Beetle is the same as a Rolls Royce, simply because it has a bulge to it and 4 tires. But there is absolutely no similarity other than that from that point on. And so the Germans tried to replicate it. They were not successful. Any of the tests that I have seen, and I have seen one video of a test in which this craft was developed, the developer put rotating blades on the bottom like a helicopter, but simply unclosed underneath. Well, as you know, with a helicopter, you have to have 2 sets of rotating blades, one to prevent the other side from oscillating around itself. That's why a helicopter has a tail and another set of blades. Well, this isn't possible with this particular construction of craft, and it did not fly. It got 100 feet in the air and crashed into the ground, and the test pilots were severely injured, and that was the basic outlay of that entire program. And so let's go from there, and let's do a share screen, and let's take a look here at some of the information that I am talking about. First of all, you will see here, these are from the paintings from the Middle Ages times and beyond and earlier, in which you can see that there are a number of these elliptical crafts inside the painting. And so, and this has got to be at least by now, 800 years old or more.
Yeah.
Now, the good clincher is here's one by Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, anybody who says that da Vinci was a Nazi certainly has a few screw looses upstairs in their brain, right?
Yeah.
So it's a circular craft, just like so many others are out there. And
The lenticular type, actually.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a very good rendition. He clearly was a
It
man
is.
beyond his time.
Yeah.
Here's another picture that comes from the 1400s by Piero Franciscus, having to do with the return of religious artifact to Jerusalem. And up here in the sky, you can see the elliptical device with the dome on it. The same thing over here looks exactly like a flying saucer. And this comes from the mid 1400s.
Yeah.
So as we continue to look at some of this evidence, look here, a circular device with a beam of light shooting out of it. And
actually, from the classical claimed abduction phenomenon where blue light, grabs people, which, that's exactly the same.
right,
Yeah.
right. This picture here has them lined up.
Yeah.
Now, the clouds do not line up in consecutive parallel venues, not only to and from each other, but sideways. But especially look at this one here.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
definitely is dome shaped.
You can zoom into the image if you want to, Glenn, just to show it a little bit clearer. Maybe you can just use your mouse wheel just to zoom in. I think you can. No, you can just actually use your mouse just to zoom in. Can you do it?
Here and just click.
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So
There you
we'll see
go.
it a little bit clearer.
I mean, that gives you a perfect view
Yeah, that's that's also shape.
of a saucer-shaped
Yeah.
device.
And there are different ones also in the middle, in the distance.
That's right.
Yeah.
Numerous ones.
Yeah.
Here you've got one which I'm sure many people have seen with the device in the back of the painting. These are enlargements of the original insert so that you can see that definitely is not a bird or a cloud. This is a UFO extraterrestrial device.
Yeah.
And here, this one, I mean, speaks for itself. Here you got two objects in the sky. Here's the enlargements of them both. I mean, this alone makes the Nazi accusation totally ludicrous.
Yeah.
And that's the only word that can be associated to it.
Yeah.
Now, we talk about an observation on the moon. Already starting in the late 1800s, 40 members of the Royal Astronomical Society see all kinds of patterns and moving objects, a 50-mile wide opaque object on the moon. Are you telling me that the Nazis were on the moon in 1871 and could construct something that is 50 miles in size?
No.
I mean, that is, I mean, really, people, you can use your own rationalization to find out. And so, of course, what you have is this same contingent that makes these accusations. They make a big deal out of the Antarctic in the 1935 and 1936 periods. So I wanted to remind people that colonialization by the European countries was worldwide for hundreds of years. Let me give you an example. Here's a picture of all the colonialization that have occurred by European countries and where basically the entire planet was carved up by different countries worldwide.
Yeah.
And if you look here, look at Africa, the whole German central part of this nation was called German Middle Africa. And in fact, my great-great-grandfather built railroads in this area when he was alive during that time. I met him once in '64, I believe it was, and Fritz was his name. And it shows you once again the countries are all carved up. And is Antarctica any different? No. Here's Antarctica in 1943. Look at all the presence, including Germany, in the Antarctica area.
Yeah.
So to say that the Germans had secretly spirited themselves to Antarctica and established themselves secretly is all garbage, because everybody else was there too.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think these are powerful reminders of that people will start to look at and say, hey, well, wait a minute, what are these other clowns talking about?
Yeah.
So let's look at a few photographic evidence that started as early as 1910. Here, elliptical device, 1910, over France, over the car race.
Yeah.
This is probably the pretty early advent of photography. And then you have this one here over Central Europe in 1918. None of this was Nazis, because the Nazis didn't even exist until 1933.
No.
And here we go with more crafts. This is also on the European continent. And so to show people, here you go, here's another craft. And if we take
1923,
23,
yeah.
And if you take the enlargement, there you go. You see a better view of that particular round and dome-shaped object. Let's see what else we got.
28.
Let's give everybody the full gamut. 1928, absolutely the shipyard, no less. Here is 1928 again. A clear view of a bell-shaped craft.
Yeah.
And let's go here. This is in Colorado in 1929. So it's not just in Europe, it's in the US, it's in South America, it's in Canada, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Look at this. I mean, this is pretty defined when you look at that.
It is.
And so here's another one from this one here, also the United States, in 1932. Look at this ship here. You can even see the three ball condensers.
Just zoom in, Glenn.
Yeah.
Instead of making the blow up, you can just zoom in. You can move it with the hand. Yeah.
There you go. See,
yeah.
So that gives you a very good look at this, and to say that this is all Nazi construction flying all over the planet. They would have easily won the war hands down without a single shot fired if they could have developed this.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is a classical bell-shaped craft, actually.
That's right.
You can see the cabin, you can see the dome, you can see it. Yeah, you can see it.
That's right. Here's another one.
Yeah.
35. I mean, that's a pretty good one, clear one too, and it shows the field around the craft as well.
It does.
I mean, while the Germans tried to reproduce circular craft like this one as one of their things, you can see it's nothing like that.
It's actually a tank. This here particular image is actually a tank for the ground assault.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so just because something's round doesn't make it a UFO. Now, some of these look a little bit closer, but you can see things that are not on a regular flying saucer. Of course, the gun turrets are not there. You have a magnetic pole on the real one. On the real one, you do not have 3 portholes. You have sets of 4 portholes. You do not have wheel tire landing gears. So these, while they may be round, that's about as close as it gets.
Yeah.
And so here you have the Hanabu also, but once again, unsuccessful in its flight characteristics and development. And so consequently, it gives people an idea that just because something is round doesn't make it so. Look here, here's development in the US of something round. And that had helicopter blades on the bottom of it as well. And you can see that it looks just round, but nothing else like a flying saucer.
Very unstable and couldn't move more than a couple of feet off the ground. So
That's all it could do because
Yeah.
of the helicopter blades. They did
Yeah.
not have anything else.
No.
Now, when you look here, some of this same contingent has tried to accuse any of the flying saucers seen since all over the world, whether it's by Adamski or anybody else all over the planet, are actually German crafts, which is, once again, you have to be totally naive or purposely deceptive in order to try to push that kind of a whatever the word I'm thinking of, program. I think
Narrative. Let's
there you
call it
go.
narrative.
Yeah, program. So
Yeah.
this was in England in '54, and that was uh, used by Leonard Cramp in the Space, Gravity, and Flying Saucers in order to do the orthographic projection between the Adamski photo for the size-wise is 33 feet in diameter and the Coniston photo to find it exactly to have the same dimensions. Once again, let me point out 1, 2, 3, 4, a set of 4 portholes times 3 for a total of 12. If you look at an Adamski scout picture, here it is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a telescopic shot taken by George Adamski. So to say that he had contact with Antarctic Germans that were masquerading as extraterrestrials, all I can say is don't make me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
And so,
Well,
to give a bit,
the claim is that that Adamski was contacted by the people from German people from the secret space program and exposing like they told that they were from Venus. That is the claim.
well, of course, anybody can make a erroneous or falsified claim or basically commit perjury. But as I showed you in the pictures before, prior to 1933, all the way back to the Middle Ages, there have been these duplicate crafts, and nothing can be associated to Germany. Here's a picture from the contact of George Adamski in 1952, reported by Project Blue Book and the military. Cigar-shaped craft, multiple UFOs around it. I mean, if Germany was producing cigar-shaped craft that could orbit the planet at 120 miles, fly to the moon, and be miles in diameter and in length, I mean, I want the average person to think about that. How do you put trillions of pounds of material and payload into space and the personnel to work on it continually to build a craft of this nature with the framework of Nazi Germany? I mean, here you can see some of these craft taken by Adamski and telescope in front of the moon. And they have been reputed to be as many as 30 miles long, not only but the article from the 1871 was 50 miles. Here's another one, multiple ones. I mean, it is the evidence is so absolutely concrete for extraterrestrial visitation that it is not deniable. Look at the size of this cigar-shaped craft. I mean, it is gigantic, enormous, at least, I would say, 10,000 feet long.
Yeah.
And showing the little scouts around it as well. And so here's some more of them. Another one with the smaller ones around here. These are nighttime shots, and we have daytime shots as well. Here's one through the telescope. These are not windows.
No.
Somebody made a mistake and told me that you could see the windows on there. No, absolutely not. This is a hull with multi-metal design. This is nothing more than the sun glinting along the surface like you would have the sun glinting off your car or aluminum surface. What you have here is magnetic rings that rotate around the hull at varying speeds and opposite directions along the distance of the hull. And the combination of that and the electromagnetic power produces the pro-gravity field and propulsion system to make it weightless and to also propel itself from A to B. And so that's one of them. Here's another one over the Southern California mountain range that was taken.
You can zoom
And
in, Glenn. You can zoom in again just to show the craft in the sky if people can't see it.
okay, very good. We'll do that.
Just scroll with the scroll wheel. No, you
Oh,
just use the mouse again.
there
Yeah,
you go.
and you can move it
And
with
you
the.
can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a couple more here, and there's
Yeah,
one of them that's lit
yeah, exactly.
here, 10 and 11, a dozen.
Zoom into the one on the left, which is lying on its side. Just zoom, just continue to zoom in. Yeah, you should be able to go much further.
That's about as much as
Okay.
it's willing to do.
Okay.
But it shows you the craft with its full propulsional system. I mean, if the Germans could build a mothership and put 12 saucers around it and come over San Diego in broad daylight in the 1950s, we'd all be speaking German because there was no defense that we could possibly have. Here's another picture my father took over the North Atlantic of the same type of craft. This is actually part of a motion picture film, and one frame of it with the two saucers above it to show the same likeness. Also of a fleet of craft over Germany that we filmed out of the train. And this was shown on German national television while he was lecturing there. One craft of the newer design that has replaced the bell-shaped to a greater degree, which is the elliptical design. This is capable of going interplanetary and through deep space without the need of a mothership, where the other ones, the bell-shaped craft, require a mothership to take it from one spot to the next. And here's a closer for you all. This is a NASA picture. NASA picture of Apollo 12 with the ship right above him, elliptical ship, hanging right above the astronauts. And this picture, along with so many others, are available in my father's first book, We Discovered Alien Bases on the Moon, which came out in 1981. I revised in 1997 into Alien Bases Book 2, and that is available on eBay along with my new book that I mentioned before. But so this now is telling you and showing people that these crafts are far beyond any technological ability that we have in order to replicate and produce that. They have been tracked as fast as 20,000 miles per hour through our atmosphere by multiple military air traffic control facilities. They flew in formations of a dozen over the White House and Capitol building in July of 1952, through all over Europe and the UK in 54, and Paris and Rome and Africa and Madrid. I mean, really, people, if you think that the Nazis somehow managed to transport hundreds of billions of tons of raw material and construct in minus 40-degree weather with wind chill factors of minus 60 manufacturing plants in order to build a fleets of tens of thousands of UFOs, then all I can say is you should do some reading. Another severe misinformation that is being propagated, and this goes along in conjunction and ties into the assumption of Nazi UFOs, is that the term Nordic alien, or the association between Nordic and Aryan, ties that to the Nazis. Now, let's be very clear. These two terms are terms that have been developed by our civilizations and our academia, nobody else. There is no such thing as Nordic aliens. And they used this term to describe George Adamski's first meeting because he met with a person who had longish blonde hair and blue-green eyes, but he also had a Mediterranean complexion, or kind of an olive complexion, And he also, George described the other people in the ships as being men and women of various heights, various hair colors, various eye colors, and pigmentation. And so, once again, the unscrupulous factions within the UFO community jump on one blonde person and say, look, 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 they're all Nordic. It has nothing to do with that. That is a false association. And there is no Aryan collaboration to this as well. The space people are coming in a variety of races, not species, but races. And they are races of human beings.
Yeah, that is exactly what is coming here. Yeah, different races, one species, all human. That's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It is compelling evidence that the Nazi connection is not existent. It does not exist about UFOs. The true UFOs, which are seen by people in the sky since way back in Middle Ages, at least, and further back, which has been seen through history as different appearances, what people could describe it as, whether it was flying scrolls, flying shields, whatever. People had to have some kind of reference frame to describe what they saw if they didn't understand it, and that is the way that has continued all the way up through before and after the Nazi Party, because people are still seeing UFOs, and if people still claim that they should be Nazi spacecrafts, I think they have another thing coming. I don't think that the Nazi Party is active at all in any places on Earth at this time, and I don't think we can claim that they are, and everything we see which is unexplained in the sky should be Nazis. I don't see the connection. I don't see it.
Let's just look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Because numbers don't lie.
No.
All right. When you had NICAP under Major Kehoe, who wrote a number of very, very good books on this subject, chronicalizing military observations and airline pilots and scientists and whatever, there was almost 12,000 sightings within a 10-year period. The Navy had about the same, 11. The Air Force about the same. All the military branches had about the same not the same sightings, but the same number of them over years, right? And so if it was to say that any earthly power could produce tens of thousands of these spacecraft
in secret
and travel all over the world. I mean, first you develop it in secret, and then you show it to everybody by traveling all over the world and exposing it, right? I mean, I could easily produce another page with dozens and dozens of these photographs taken since the time that I have in there, since, shall we say, 1945, all the way to present day, and show people how many of these crafts have been seen and the likeness of them and photographed and where and under what conditions. And so consequently, it doesn't take away the fact that the Germans may have seen something and wished to duplicate it, but they never did it successfully, and they never did it in any numbers, and they certainly didn't manage to continue the programs after World War II, because both the Allied forces and the Russians seized every single facility and scientists they could possibly get their hands on. That was actually one of the greatest pushes that was taken during the advance upon Berlin and Germany to get these people, because they wanted access not only to the atomic bomb, but any of the other forward-thinking engineered device. The Germans developed sonic devices like a tuning fork that would point in a direction and send disruptive waves. They expended with some microwave initial things like this, and radar waves and aircrafts. I mean, they were extremely innovative with that, as we mentioned. the V7, which was the flying wing, which we didn't see until we saw actually the B1 B2 bomber, which is a flying wing and a pusher propulsion system, and so incredibly, the thinking and the designs were of quite forward in motion and looking, but that does not make them the source of extraterrestrial visitations or the accusations. Well, then if the Nazis didn't do it, then it came from Middle Earth because we've got some civilization that's living underground like a bunch of rats and moles, or there's a big hole in the top of the Arctic in which they can fly into the middle of the planet. I personally have flown I've flown personally a dozen times across the North Pole as my career as an airline pilot.
And there's no hole.
And there's no hole there. And so perhaps the only hole is in people's thinking.
Yeah.
But the reality to things is often quite awakening versus the fantasy. And unfortunately, so much of this field has succumbed itself to science fiction and science fantasy.
Because they don't really are able to produce any evidence of any actual real craft. So they tend to fantasize instead of what they could look like or what they could be behind them. They have no knowledge. That is, I think, the problem for many researchers. They have
That's true.
concrete.
Well, there's the old saying, and I've asked this of other UFO researchers on other shows that I've been as well on, and I said, comes down to the bottom line. Where is your proof?
Yeah.
And they don't have any.
No.
So they try to then say, well, this or that, blah, 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 and talk their way around it and weasel the way from underneath it. But the bottom line is, without some evidence, without some proof, you really have nothing to say. It's all innuendo. It's all imagination. Like I told one fellow here not too long ago, most of the children believe the boogeyman is underneath the bed. And if you look, you find out there's nobody underneath the bed. And once again, it's only a figment of the imagination and the insecurity of the mind.
Yeah, because you tell a story that sounds exciting, it doesn't make it true, does it? So you can actually say that, okay, the Nazis are flying crafts around the world, but where do you have the proof? It's just a good story, and it is only a story. There is absolutely no released or able to be found evidence in the Bundesarchiv in Germany of any of these secret crafts. And the Allies and the Russians searched every airbase, every installation after the war to find secret weapons. And they found examples of aircraft, ordinary aircraft of jet propulsion design, nothing more. They did not find any exotic crafts of any kind.
That's true. That's the truth.
That's the truth and the conclusion. There was no exotic craft found.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Like to see the pictures. Nobody has shown any pictures of those.
No, nothing that's authentic. That's for sure.
No, exactly.
Right?
Models you can put in front of a small landscape and make a fake picture. That's possible. And some of those, one of those that you show was actually a fake picture. So
the German one?
No, I can show you that. I think it was the one where you had the one with on the ground where you showed the model and the model building set afterwards. I think you can show that again if you want to.
Yeah, let me try again.
The Haunebu.
Let's try again and see.
Yeah, I can show you that that is actually this one to the right. This one.
This one?
Yep. That's actually a model with small people just put up. This is not a real photo. This is actually a model.
Yeah, because if you look at it, you can see that the discrepancy between size of the equipment and size of the people and things like this. This thing would have to be 100 feet or more in diameter.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
it doesn't surprise me that that's the case.
Yeah.
And I think that that this program of denial to try to deny that these crafts are intelligently controlled and to come from us from other worlds is part of that, where we try to find any excuse possible in order to push the story away again and
Yeah.
keep people placated. And of course there is a large contingency of people who are making a great deal of notoriety and perhaps a little bit of profit off of projecting and promoting these kind of stories,
Yeah.
because they see something around and they jump to conclusions, and they don't do the rest of the research that is necessary to actually substantiate what they say. So my answer to people are, whether it's me or anybody else in this field, that they listen carefully and look carefully at the evidence that's presented, and then do themselves a little bit of research. And I believe then the answers will become crystal clear to them. And it's better that way, because you're not supposed to take always somebody else's word for something. You're supposed to ferret it out yourself.
Yeah, it's too easy just to believe other people's claims and stories.
Well, it's
Do
extremely
some,
lazy too.
it's lazy, yeah. Do some research of your own and you will perhaps see another truth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the correct truth.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, like we mentioned before, there is only one truth.
Yeah.
There is what it is, and it's not interpretation, it's not opinion, it's not theory, it's not hyperbole. All of that stuff means absolutely zero.
The truth cannot be separated in a part truth and so a little bit of truth. No, it's either truth or it's not.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Your interpretation of it doesn't mean a thing. It's
No.
what it is.
Yeah.
And your acceptance of that then makes life a heck of a lot easier, because then you can move on to the next subject and the next thing, and you don't have to constantly fight with insecurities and uncertainties. And that's, once again, the UFO field. Such a bombardment of complete science fiction, fantasy, imagination, so that people will stay forever confused and forever uncertain, and they don't go to the next logical step.
Yeah, exactly. That is, I think that could be our conclusion to this little part of about the Nazi conspiracy and deception. And I think that is where we end this little bit. Okay, thanks a lot, Glenn. And we will talk about another subject the next time.
Okay.